Okay, it's a live program. Anything can happen. Welcome back to the program. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television, and of course, this morning we are going into the Nollywood sector, and today we're taking a look at filmmaking, the pros and cons in Nigeria. Who better to do justice to this topic than this delectable woman that we have in the studio this morning? She's a woman of many parts. She's a storyteller, a filmmaker, a director, an actor. Yes, this morning we're pleased to welcome into the studio Biodun Stephen. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so today we're taking a look at filmmaking in Nigeria. Did you start out as an actor or a director or a storyteller?
I was a writer, but I actually started off as a radio personnel.
Wow.
Yes, and a newscaster.
Oh, okay.
Welcome home.
Yes.
There's hope for you where? Okay, so at what point was the crossover?
I think it was in 2012. That was when I made the decision. Then I was working in an ad agency as a copywriter, and I thought, I was not fulfilled. I wanted to do film. I was a storyteller. And even when I was in an ad agency, I excelled better with, drama-inspired adverts.
Okay.
And then I thought, what? Life is too short. Let me go and chase my dream.
Let me chase your dream.
Let me chase my dream.
Okay, let's talk about the history and the growth of the industry. When you started or when you crossed over, what was it like then? And what kind of significant growth have we witnessed lately?
I think that by the time I was ready to cross over, there was a major shift in Nollywood. A lot of Nollywood was then infiltrated by a lot of people who were returning from training abroad. So Nollywood was changing. If you had asked me when I was much younger, when I was chasing the acting dream, when Nollywood was largely, controlled by the marketers, it wasn't an easy industry to get into.
Okay.
But by the time I had also gone to film school and come back, that was when we had the influx of returnees, back. So it was easy. And at that time, talent then began to matter.
Okay.
It was not who do you know. It was a case of, if you have the skill, if you have the talent, if you have the zeal, there was an opportunity for it. Because that was really what happened as well. When I came back, I had an opportunity to sit down with someone who took interest and said, let me take a gamble.
Right.
And,
But at the time you returned, only very few women were bold enough to take that step to want to do filmmaking. You had a lot of women who were acting.
Yes.
A lot of women who were probably in costume, makeup and all of that. But of course, a directorial approach. Only very few women were in that field. So for you, was it a deliberate effort to want to do film itself and not necessarily acting?
To be honest, filmmaking became the option when the acting was not working out. So, countless auditions that we didn't sail through. And so I also knew that aside from acting, I was a writer.
Okay.
And then, being a writer, sometimes you wanted to see how these stories would come alive on screen. And those were some of the things that sort of fueled my going to film school. So when I came back, the focus was not even to direct instantly, was to produce, to help the director, to provide everything the director needs to ensure that the story is being well told. And then eventually the cross was just quite quite seamless when it was time for me to say, you know what, I think I'll take it from here.
Okay.
You know, it was not because there was a lack of female directors, because as at then we had Tokwe Oshin, we had Uduak Isong, we had a few people, Isong as well. We had a few people who were already in that sphere.
Right.
But I think for me it was the importance of how my story was being translated to screen, and who better to tell it than me.
Than you.
I'll still take you back to storytelling. How difficult is it to write a very good story and back it up with good technicalities?
Ha! It's quite an ambiguous question, because again, with every story writer, we all have our niche. When I started writing stories, my focus was human angle stories, relatable human angle stories. That for me was the focus, because I felt like a lot of people were writing out of their imagination, but were forgetting to relate it to the everyday, everyday man. And I found very interestingly that the blue collar, sector of the economy, their stories were really colorful. They were dealing with issues in life that if you are in Ikoyi, you may not really understand, because if you are entering bus, there is a different vibe. There is a whole story that you meet other people. So for me, those were the, so to answer your question in terms of the challenge, writing the story, I think that as a writer, you also want to decide what is the scope of what you want to tell. Understanding the scope, understanding who your characters are, because you can't write about everybody. However, we live in a country where the industry was built out of pocket. So as wide as you want your imagination or your writing to be, is many times being contained by the money in your pocket.
The budgets.
So it then behoves of you to become, I thought that's something I found very interesting about Nollywood. It allows you to be really, really creative. Which lie do I want to tell here? Which battle do I want to face here? Where do I want to put the money that it still does not take away from? And that is the challenge. And for me, that is the challenge that I enjoy, being able to creatively decide what my budget should tackle. And that for me is a challenge.
But you talked about budget, you talked about funding, you talked about money, which means that is very important in every production. So how do you fund your project? Because again, that is key to the kind of film that you produce. And of course, you kept saying when I returned from film school, so it gave me the notion that of course that film school was probably not in Nigeria. So with the kind of training you acquired and the kind of production that you saw while in training, and when you returned, were you able to marry?
It's a different school when you come here. Because abroad, the infrastructure is there. So they train you according to the infrastructure that they have. When you come back here, there are other things. For instance, the issue of sound. So abroad, they tell you, boom the sound, don't put mics on your body. But here, if you boom the sound, you are picking
surround sounds.
So those some of the challenges. And again, how we film here is totally different.
Right.
I'm happy that 8 years down the line, been filming since officially since 2012, or 11 years down the line, we have. I can see the growth. I can see the effort, the intentionality to try and match. We still have a lot of issues that are sort of limiting, the growth. But in Hollywood, I would give it, we have grown exponentially, and it's an industry that has pretty much grown out of pocket. It's not so funding that has been an issue. To answer your question, when I came back, we had to do some begging. You had to pull resources from different people. And then eventually certain platforms came, like Iroko TV, when they came and decided, you know what, we want to fund producers, help you build your studio. And then every other person began to collaborate. So now, in the industry, collaboration is the new currency. You have the story, you have the equipment, you have, the distribution. All of us come together because that's the new currency. To be able to tell the stories well.
Okay, in terms of funding, like Abimbola said, how do you think government can come in? And then what are those structures that you think should be put in place to assist filmmakers in the industry?
To be honest, I think that a few years ago, the government did support us with the CBN Creative Fund. I don't know what happened, why that funding was stopped, you know. And I also know that there was something again a few years ago that Lagos State also did, another sort of pool of funds for the creatives. You know, again, accessing these things, you need to have your documentation. So I think that a lot of us some of us may not have. I did access the CBN Creative Fund, you know, but I also think that one of the things that the government can do for us, the infrastructure, we don't have a film village, which I also know that the Lagos State government has recently commissioned
the film city.
The film city. That's going to take a couple of years. Creating a Nollywood-friendly environment, which is something I've always talked about on my own social media page. It is a mayhem, it is a chaos, and I think because it's no longer enough to have the permit from Lagos State that gives you the right to shoot on the road, you then have these boys that are, I mean, they are in every nook and cranny. And yes, and it's now entitlement, it's use of force. They don't mind destroying your stuff just to make sure that they get that money. And, you know, so they sort of need to help us tackle that. Yeah.
Adebimpe, you have a question?
Yes. Everyone has spoken a lot about film school and those that attend film school. My question now is, can one be part of this industry without going to film school? Can passion, you know, take you through also?
Oh, yes. I have met people who started off as interns. I don't like to use the word apprentice, you know, as interns. Even in my crew, I've had people who didn't have an education, but had enough zeal, had you know, the passion, you know, and I've seen them grow exponentially. I have somebody who came in as a runner, and we call runner is somebody go and buy water, go and buy this, and today she's a focus puller.
Oh, wow.
You know, so the industry is one such that you really, education is key for certain things, but if you have the enough passion and you are committed, you will grow without even having a formal education.
School,
yes.
Right. So there's this thing that you hear oftentimes, low budget.
Yes.
So what makes a low budget movie?
And I sigh because I think over the years I've been tagged, you know, as a low budget queen, and so there is a misconception. My first film had only 4 people, 1 location, and people would assume it's low budget. That film cost us millions, 4 human beings, 1 location. What makes a film low budget is they are the choices that you make for those films. It's not about the size of the crew. It's not about the size of the cast. It's not about the enormity of the location, you know. For instance, if I have access to LTV for free and I have access to everybody here, it will cost me peanuts. So that would also be a low budget film, right? But I would have had access to all of the tech that is here, and you know, financially was low budget to me. So I think that the word low budget is very vague, and it's very, very vague because again, there are certain decisions you take. However, the layman's language is, oh, a film is shot on really small, with really small funds. It doesn't translate all the time on screen that is low budget.
Okay, we see certain productions, we see actors, we watch films, and then we laugh without knowing what the producers, the actors, or the director had to go through to bring such entertaining production to our homes and offices. But then you see some actors and you're like, what is this person doing in this industry? How do you think we can regulate the industry wherein those that are really talented will be the ones to be in the industry?
My brother, life no balance. Life no balance. There are people who...
Because I see some actors and I question their competence.
Like how did you
get that
in terms of their delivery, in terms of their accents?
Or do you still have marketers imposing some certain actors on you?
Yeah.
No, well, I may speak for myself. I speak for myself. You know, again, we are from Nigeria, where we are largely very sentimental and emotive about some of our decisions. You know, so it'll be difficult sometimes. You have one abroad or one like mother is begging you, you want to throw them in. However, the focus should always be, what is the end product? What am I doing with this? It'll be unfair to you as a producer and to your executive producer to make somebody who is incapable to be the lead. Sometimes you have a case where Bimbola comes to me and says, money 5 million, you know, let's make a film, and I want to be the lead. In that situation, you're asking yourself, well, it's your money, it's your,
What about your name?
Well, you know, sometimes, again, for me, I always battle this. And I remember that I shot a film, and I'm not sure that lady will come back to me at the end of the day, because I had to tell her point blank, you are trying to ruin my name. You do. I literally begged and begged. I don't think you should do this. I can't act. I don't think you should do this role. I don't think this is for you. And you know, and then sometimes you just, you know what,
Oh yeah, just do
let's let it be. All of us will see the
end results
for the picture. Now she poses, go take the photo. You know, so that also is a situation where maybe the executive producer is the primary funder of the film. You're not able to control that situation.
Right.
But that's why it's always important for directors, producers to be in a position where they are able to stamp their feet and say, this is what I think. At the end of the day, for the executive producer, it's a business. For you, it's your creative name, a name that you have built, and a trust for your brand. So sometimes we do need to stamp our feet, but we cannot win all the battles.
all the battles. So when you write a script or when you're producing a movie, what inspires your cast? Because again, sometimes you might have some perception of who you'd like to be your lead role, and that person might not be available at that particular point in time, and then you're trying to get another person. Or is it that before you write a script, you already have a preconceived notion as to, okay, I want to write a script tailored around this person's personality, or I'm looking at this set of people onto my next movie or my production? So what informs your cast?
For me, there is no formula. I have tried all of the options you have given. I have tried. When I wrote Brother Life, I had done a film with Biodun, and it was Looking for Bami, and I knew from when I was writing that she was going to be the one to play Todowede.
Okay.
You know, we had joked, and she had made a few jokes about that accent, so I knew. And there were also times, so for example, with Picture Perfect Bello-Dawodu, we never... And Bello always did the American accent. You know? So all of us are like, oh, wow, let this not fail. So it's really, sometimes you want to take a gamble. Sometimes you know who you're writing for, and sometimes who you are writing for may not work. Right. Sometimes you finish writing the story and you realize that, I don't think this is working. And then sometimes you read. So again, for me, I do different things. For a character, I could write it this way, and then, you know, and I said, well, let me redesign the character for somebody else. So if I'd written something originally for a Yoruba person, and I realized that, you know what, I want to use an Igbo actor, I then redesigned the film to fit that person's profile. Because again, I'm very big on language, you know, interjections in my film. I don't want you to be saying bati, you know. So we would redesign the film to suit your strengths and something. So those were the reasons why sometimes, you know, most of these films, the actors get a shine, because we always redesign the story just to fit into their persona, particularly when we have not designed it originally for them. Yeah.
Sorry, a follow up to that. Sorry, Ajibala. Sometimes you also act in your own movies. So are they deliberate, or sometimes you just in between just pick up those roles?
Sometimes
you're managing your budget.
No, sometimes so for somebody who really wanted to act, I'm no longer as big on acting. Sometimes it's that kind of thing, because I remember that I've written something for myself twice and I ended up not acting it. So it's many times a case of there's nobody, okay, let me do it, or the role is sort of maybe comical, something that I can bring my comical inflections, so I choose to do it so that scene doesn't just go like flat, that. You know. So it really depends.
Okay, so how much of opportunities do you give to those who are not known yet? Because many producers often find it difficult to take that risk.
I think that's always been my mantra.
That question was deliberate.
Yes, always been my mantra and I get accused all the time still. I don't know what people want me to do. But it's always been my mantra from the get-go. Somebody who knew me not from nowhere, gave me an opportunity, so I try to do that. However, I also try to, because again, Nollywood, we don't have the luxury of a year to plan a film. You know, you're planning in a year, you're shooting like 5-6 films, and these are like big budget films, so you are also trying to minimize risk and all of that. So I tend to sometimes go back to people I've used in the past, but what I don't do is I don't allow them repeat what they've done. You know, I try to, you know, so for instance, someone like Bisola Yola, I'm always like, what else can Bisola do? Or Bisola, come and do Igbo accent. Bisola, come and do British accent. There's always something, because again, I just love to heal. What else can you do? But for me, more importantly, is to try and give new actors an opportunity. I can't give everybody an opportunity. I can't give everybody who is badgering me. I can only take 1 or 2. Right. And again, there has to be an opportunity for you to shine. Unfortunately, film is a business, and many times I'm using people's funds, so I'm not at liberty, and I'm saying this publicly if anybody's watching, I'm not at liberty to take a novice and shove it up the face of the executive. I mean, even to take known actors, so understanding EPs, you are begging. This is the one you have to really give a rationale as to why you're using this person. And sometimes there are some battles you don't, again, you just let it go, you know.
But there are some actors you love to work with.
Oh, yes.
And so you probably will choose them over and over again to star in your movies. Is it because of their commitment? Is it because of their talent? Is it because you just feel, oh, this person has to be just in my production?
It's largely because of the ability to interpret the role. Okay. You know, to near perfection.
Right.
And again, for some actors, some of the people that are on my favorite list is always a case of, I love their energy, their ability to interpret the role, and their energy. Once I call them, they know that I'm calling them not to just come and fill in the gap. It's because it's going to be also challenging. We are all going to be challenged, you know, in the film, and that's what I try to do.
So how much of discipline should one adopt if you want to be successful as an actor?
Every single ounce of discipline that you can muster. There are days you go to set. I remember my trying to be an actor days, and I got a call to come to Lagos. I came all the way from Ife, because I schooled in Ife, and I came all the way from Ife, and I sat down, and I was there from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and he told me, "Why are you here?"
At 5 p.m.
Who called you? I said, I'd even I had read with other auditioners. I had read for them. So I was waiting for my turn. And those moments can be very disheartening. There are days when I've gone on a set for 4 days and I was not paid. I'm like, thank you so much. You did so well. 4 days. So those days are very, I'm not saying it's the right thing, but those days are days when you say, what am I doing in this place? Discipline is very key. Many of these young people, when they ask, and a lot of, you have to ask, why do I want to be an actor? If it's for the fame, you know, I think the hardest thing is not to get the fame. The hardest thing is to keep the spotlight shining on you when the fame comes. Because fame changes you, whether you like it or you like it. So you have to make an intentional decision to remain grounded. You know, so discipline is very key. Professionalism is key. Don't what's the English? Don't compare yourself to somebody else. Don't, because somebody came late, you come late. Do your job, because it's your job. You've been paid for that time. Come and do it and go. You know, it doesn't mean you should not express your displeasure if certain things happen. But I think that is what we lack: professionalism and discipline. You know, stand for what you believe in and communicate that, you know, as politely as you can, and keep to time. If the production delays you, don't worry. They've paid for a particular time. Do that, and then, you know.
Right. So you've done a couple of movies. Which has been your most challenging?
Hey, way. I don't even know how to answer that. And this is very different because people always ask what's your favorite film, which I don't have. My most challenging.
Yeah, thinking through.
Yes, I'm thinking through. I think my most challenging will be, it's not out yet, it's called a film, it's Atiko. It was my very first epic Yoruba English film, and we shot in Oyo State.
Okay.
I had never shot an epic of that scale before, so I'm very glad and thankful to the people that funded the film. But I think it's one of the, because I was really scared that would I, again, my Yoruba is great on Instagram. Outside of that is in shambles. So I mean, there's having to, I can't even read Yoruba, and the script was in Yoruba language, you know, so they had to write the English.
So you could get
yeah, so I could
interpretation.
understand, you know, what they were, you know, what they were saying or what that scene was supposed to be about. But I think that's my most challenging.
So it's not out yet.
Okay.
It's not out. It's coming.
How do you manage difficult actors? Because some actors are difficult
Yes.
to work with.
Plenty of patience. Plenty of patience, and knowing that you will never do it again.
Like, okay, this is probably going to be it. I'm not going
and if
to.
it's going to happen again, it means that I must have groomed myself with patience. Yes.
You also sometimes involve your immediate family members in your production.
Hey, this man.
Your girls.
I follow you.
Yes.
I follow you as well.
I follow
My
you.
girls, my husband.
Your husband, your girls. So is it also deliberate, or sometimes you also say, you know what, we are in this thing together, so come and fill in the gap.
In front of nobody. You know? With my husband, again, it was... He's our crewman. He's our crewman. We're like, we're shit to come and do this thing. And then sometimes with the girls, child actors are a bit of, you have to be really patient with child actors. And I know this because my children were actors, and I remember I took my young daughter to a set one day, and she said, I just want to call action. And we drove all the way from my house to the island. And that was what she did. She called action and walked off the set.
Wow.
So, you know, she said that's what she wanted. I don't want to do anything. I want to just call action. So I use my kids because I'm able to manage
Them.
my kids. If, you know, if once the girls or a daughter is required, but they have do grow now.
So they are doing shakara for you now.
They are not even here. So they've gone to school. So,
Right.
but yeah, that's why I started using my daughters a lot. Because again, they were also good actors. They could do it.
Okay, I want you to be very frank in answering my next question.
Yeah.
Nollywood has grown in leaps and bounds. How rewarding is it for you?
I cannot complain. I would not say, oh, I have all of the money in the world. I don't even have all the money in my area. But I can't complain. I have seen how my business has grown with with discipline, frugality, and just being able to put the money, whatever that comes in, back into my business. I have seen my own growth, you know, as a businesswoman, aside from as a creative. So can it be better? Yes, because if it's better, I will not be doing 6-7 films a year. You know, I'll probably do 2 films a year and, you know, relax my mind. But we didn't have such opportunity. So, yeah, but I still cannot complain.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so let's also talk about something in the light of what happened a few days ago, where an actor or a few actors and crew members lost their lives while in production. What are some of the things that producers, executive producers, directors need to put in place during production or when you're shooting, especially outside? So do you cover medical bills? Are there insurances? What kind of mechanisms do you also put in place when you're shooting outside?
For me, outside, I think, and I would like to answer this question this way. Producers, myself inclusive, executive producers, they need to understand that the crew, the cast, human beings first, and not products, not tools towards your, your goal. we assume that certain provisions are expensive. They are not. Having a first aid kit on set, because I do it once we are out of Lagos, where we don't have access to hospital close by. We go with a medical personnel.
Okay.
We ensure that we don't even go with the police. We use the local security there, because I feel like it's safer. They know the terrain. They can protect you than going with the police from Lagos.
Right.
You know, so particularly because we find ourselves filming in the forest. A film like Atiko, it was 45 minutes drive into the forest. And there was like a farm settlement there, you know, so you cannot, in that instance, police does not understand the
terrain.
So you use the local, you know, the vigilantes and the Amotekons and those things, if you look at it, they look like, when you make the sound, security, it sounds like it's a lot of money. It's not. Just ask. How much does it cost to have a medical personnel and some medicines, you know, with you on the... I think that those things are... You could be the person that would have fallen ill or have an accident. Wouldn't you take care of yourself as a producer? I think that just those things are just stuff that we, you know, if an actor is filming on the mainland and live on the island and we are finishing at 2 a.m., it's just courtesy to provide escort.
Right. If the person insists on going home.
If the person insists on going home, you know. So I feel like, so in a case of what happened, it would have been, if let's assume, for the sake of argument, that there was no life jackets anywhere close by, there would have been divers. You could have paid for an extra boat to have 4 to 5 divers in that boat going with them on that journey, just to ensure. I have only been on the boat once and my heart was in my mouth, you know, and I had a life jacket and I was reading sound till I got to Badagry and back, you know. So I understand it, but I just feel like we just need to pay attention. Not everything is not guru to the answer. It doesn't work in all cases. Right. It doesn't. It doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Does that imply that we do not really pay attention to welfare of our actors? Because aside from what happened recently, we have seen many of the practitioners, you know, calling on people to help them when they are in need, when they are ill. How much of attention are we paying to their welfare generally?
Well, I mean, that is a totally different conversation in terms of actors when they are ill. I think it takes a lot of guts for you and a lot of humility for you as somebody in need to come out in the public space to even ask for help. Again, it also, those kind of moments reminds us as actors, as practitioners in the creative industry, to pay attention to even our own personal insurance, making sure that we cover our bases when we are making the money. Like I said earlier, you know, the lights can only shine for so long. Sometimes it dims a little bit and comes back. Sometimes it doesn't even come back. What have you done in that time that light was shining on you? You know, many of us, you know, like I said, you know, frugality is very key. Being able to focus on taking care of your future so that things like that don't happen. Does the institution as a whole have this kind of thing? No. I think very recently was when the CEO of Rock had announced that she was providing, personally from her own pocket, medical insurance for about 20 veteran actors, just because she was tired of actors coming out to beg. So she was like, you know what, give me these 20 names, I want to personally handle, you know, and I really applaud Mary Njoku for, you know, for doing that. But whether the institution provides it or not, I think that even us as individuals should put a little something aside for our own medicals for the future, for the now. We don't know.
There is an Actors Guild, and so, I mean, there's an association, even though not everybody belongs to the association. So what should the association also be doing at ensuring that the future of the industry is brighter than it is at the moment? And so, of course, when things like this do happen, you hear their voices, but again, when things like this are not there, you do not hear anything. So how much of influence should the AGN be on practitioners and regulating the industry generally?
I think that we have about 3 different regulatory bodies: AGN, AMP, and that's for the producers and DGN. And I think that they are all, the reason why you only hear when them come out is when there is a need to address the public. Yeah. But there's a lot going on. There are meetings, there are facilities that are in place. It is up to the individual to decide to engage with those facilities that they've set up. You know, but they are doing a lot for the actors, for producers in the background. But they don't come out, if you're not in the group, you don't see it. Right. And they don't come out except there is a need to such, like the case of what happened sadly a few days ago.
Okay, you know, I've lost the number of times I've watched Breaded Live. I just want to ask you, is it out of a personal experience, or how did you come about the story?
With many of my stories, it's always from like personal experiences. My mother used to have a shop in Agege Market for many years, and one of my very close friends in the market, her father owned the bakery, which is the bakery we shot in. You know, and I remember that as a teenager then, I always looked at them because they were the rich kids. You know, everybody knew them. Their father had like multiple bakeries. But they didn't do anything with that opportunity. They didn't go to school. They thought the money was going to be there forever. And my mother just had a shop, and for her, education was very key. And it was from that I sort of looked at how our individual lives had turned out, and that was really where Better Life came from. So Todowede being the girl who didn't have an opportunity but had the business mind, and then Sumi who
had the opportunity,
came from, you know, and was just wasting that opportunity. And that was just sort of, that was where I came.
Okay, I can't remember if you produced that movie with Jaya and Shafi.
Yes, I did. I wrote Big Love.
Please, what inspired that
friendship,
that connection?
So my oh God, my mother's very close friend, Auntie T, and her sister are really close.
Okay.
They bicker a lot. So it was just having these two sisters, and they were just the inspiration. It was Auntie T and Auntie E who just, I looked at them as a kid, and they were always arguing, but they were inseparable. They did everything together, but they fought every single day.
So how did you choose the children?
So it was Shafi, Bello, and another actor, and then the other actor had to pull out, you know, for personal reasons. And then I just thought, who can we? In fact, the dynamics of the sister was very different. It was supposed to be very uppity. So it was Shafi Bello and somebody else speaking English. And then I just, again, like I said, we always redesign the characters to favor the actors. So when we brought in Auntie Jai, I realized that I'd also done something with Auntie Shafi where she was a Lagos woman. I said, you know what, I think this would be sweeter. You know, this would be really, you know, this would be really good. And they played off each other. It was beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay, so for any young man or woman watching us right now who might want to come into the industry, what are those basic elements or ingredients that they need to have?
Talent. Talent and dedication, commitment. Because there are days when you would question why you are doing this, and I think that those days are days when you should realize that you're just one step closer to the goal. But if you are able to pull through, and there must be a genuine reason why. If you are coming to the industry because you want to be famous, I think that reason is already flawed. Because if you don't get it, or if you must get it, you will do anything to want to get it.
Right.
And in our industry, you must stand for something. If not, you stand for anything. So it's important that you must, talent being the basic rudiment, is the fact that you must be dedicated and you must be professional. You know, stand for something notable. Yeah.
Before we allow you go, you did say that at least looking at Nollywood from where it started, there is a growth, and steady growth as we speak. So where would you like to see the industry in the next few years?
Well, at the Oscars.
Tall dreams.
Yes. Well, I mean, I would not say tall because we're very close. We've been considered a few times. We've had films that have been considered a few. You know, we still had Mami Water being considered. So we are a few years close. And a Hollywood collaboration would be great. We would ask that the government look into the co-production treaty that allows for foreigners to come and film here, you know, work on our tax rebate, because those things are the ways to grow in the industry. That co-production treaty needs to be really looked at, and with intentionality, and let's stop talking about it. I think that 2024-25, let's sort of make that co-production treaty happen, and you know, it would just be the opening to the world, not just through the platforms, but this is now, we are now in bed, you know.
All right, Jamila, that will be all.
That will be all.
All right. I'm sure that you've had fun, just like we've had fun chatting with Biodun in the studio this morning. And just like she said, if you're willing to come into the industry, it is not enough to want to be famous. You must stand for something. Thank you so much again for finding time to be here with us.
Thank you so much.